Welcome to the Salem Night Stories, where I share horror stories daily. If you enjoy this story, please like, share, and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more. Let's get into today's story. Swipe right to disappear. October 2022, Savannah, Georgia. It had been a long, exhausting week away from home. Actually, it had been 3 weeks, but who was counting? I was working early shifts at a new location for my company, some corporate restructuring thing that meant I got sent to states over to help integrate processes at a sister office. The pay was decent, they covered the hotel, but the isolation was starting to wear me down in ways I hadn't expected. I missed my friends. I missed my routine. I missed my own bed, my own coffee maker, my cat, everything that made life feel normal. The hotel room was fine, I guess. Clean sheets, working AC, but it felt sterile, empty. Every night, I'd come back after a 10-hour shift, order takeout, and stare at my phone wondering what to do with myself. On a whim, after scrolling mindlessly through social media for the 100th time, I downloaded Tinder. I wasn't looking for anything serious, God. I wasn't even sure I was looking for anything at all. I just wanted to feel less alone. Just to pass the time, you know? Just to see who was around. Maybe have some conversation that wasn't about quarterly reports and workflow optimization. That was when I matched with Dylan. His profile was simple. A few photos, one at a coffee shop, one hiking, one with a golden retriever that I later learned wasn't actually his. His bio said he was originally from Savannah, worked in marketing, loved live music and old horror movies. Normal stuff. Safe stuff. He seemed different from the start. Charming, funny, but not in that trying to hard way. He asked real questions, not just the usual, hey, what's up, or your beautiful copy-paste messages I'd been getting. He wanted to know what brought me to Savannah, what I did for work, what kind of music I was into. We talked about our favorite bands turned out. We both loved the same indie artists. Same favorite movies too. The Before Sunrise trilogy, Eternal Sunshine, all the thoughtful romantic ones. After a few days of back and forth, texting between my work shifts and his, it felt natural. Easy, like talking to someone I'd known for years instead of days. When he suggested we meet up, I didn't hesitate like I normally would have. We agreed on a casual bar not far from my hotel. I'd passed it a few times walking around the neighborhood, a place called The Rail, kind of divey, but in a good way. It was public, well lit, always had a decent crowd, safe. I told my coworker Sarah where I was going, sent her a screenshot of Dylan's profile and the address, and promised to text her when I got back. All the precautions you're supposed to take. When I got there around 8 p.m. on a Friday night, Dylan was already waiting at the bar. He looked just like his photo stall, maybe 6'2", wearing a flannel shirt and jeans. Easygoing smile that reached his eyes. He waved when he saw me, and I felt that little flutter of nervous excitement you get on first dates. He ordered us both a drink. Whiskey sour for him, gin and tonic for me. And we settled into a booth by the window where I could see the street outside. Another safety thing I always did. At first, everything felt normal. Better than normal, actually. He made me laugh with stories about disastrous client meetings and his roommate's terrible cooking. He listened when I talked, really listened, asked follow-up questions, remembered details I'd mentioned in our texts. It felt like meeting an old friend, that kind of instant comfort that's so rare with someone new. We talked about Savannah, and he told me about all the places I needed to see before I left the historic squares. The riverfront, this tiny bookstore in the Victorian district. He'd lived here his whole life except for a few years in Atlanta for college, and the way he described the city made it sound magical, haunted, and beautiful, and alive. After about an hour, maybe more, when the bar started to empty out and the bartender was wiping down tables, Dylan leaned in close enough that I could smell his cologne, something woody and expensive. He said, his voice low and almost conspiratorial, you know, there's a park just a few blocks from here, Forsyth Park. It's really beautiful at night. Quiet, private, the moss hanging from the trees in the fog. It's something everyone should see at least once. You should see it. I hesitated. It was almost 10 p.m., and something in the back of my mind was sending up warning flares. But Dylan smiled, that warm, charming smile, and added, come on, live a little. You've been cooped up in that hotel room for weeks. When's the last time you did something spontaneous? He was right. I had been playing it safe, going straight from work to the hotel every night, and it was just a walk in a park, a famous park in the middle of the city. What could happen? Against my better judgment, I agreed. We walked down cobblestone side streets that quickly grew darker and quieter. The streetlights became fewer and farther between. The fog was rolling in thick from the Savannah River, blurring the lights and swallowing the buildings behind us in gray mist. Spanish moss hung from every tree like ghostly curtains, swaying gently in the humid breeze. Dylan kept up the conversation, pointing out historic homes and telling me stories about the families who'd lived in them generations ago. But I noticed the streets were getting emptier. No cars, no people. Just the sound of our footsteps on the old stones and the distant foghorns from the river. By the time we reached the park, the city felt a lifetime away. It was like stepping into another world, ancient oak trees creating a canopy overhead. Their branches twisted and gnarled, draped in that eerie moss. The fog was so thick now I could barely see 20 feet ahead. We walked along a narrow path lined with dead leaves and skeletal trees. It smelled damp, like rain on old earth and something else underneath. Something organic and decaying. The only light came from old-fashioned lampposts spaced far apart, their glow barely penetrating the mist. At first, Dylan kept the conversation going, telling stories about growing up nearby, about coming to this park as a kid, but as we got deeper into the park, away from the main paths, he grew quieter. His pace slowed. I noticed his eyes kept darting into the trees, like he was looking for something, or checking to make sure someone was there. The hair on the back of my neck started to stand up. "You know," I said, trying to keep my voice casual, "I'm getting pretty tired. Long week, I should probably head back to the hotel." Dylan didn't respond right away. Then he chuckled under his breath. This low sound that didn't match the warm laugh I'd heard at the bar. "We're almost there," he said. "Just a little further." I stopped walking. Almost where? Something about his voice had changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by something flat and cold. He turned to face me, and in the dim lamplight, his expression looked different, harder. His smile didn't reach his eyes anymore. That was when I noticed the van. It was parked on a maintenance road near the tree line, barely visible through the fog. A white cargo van with no windows in the back. Its headlights were off, but I could see two figures standing beside it, half hidden by the mist. They weren't moving, just standing there, watching. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. I didn't explain. I just turned on my heel and sprinted back the way we'd come, crashing through the brush, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. Behind me, I could hear footsteps pounding against the ground, heavy and fast. Not just Dylan's, but multiple sets of feet. I did not look back. Branches slapped against my face and arms as I ran blindly through the mist. My purse swung wildly against my hip. My lungs burned, my legs screamed in protest, but pure adrenaline kept me moving. I had no idea which direction I was going. The fog had disoriented me completely. I just knew I had to get away. I burst out onto a main street, nearly getting hit by a car that blared its horn. Just as I stumbled onto the sidewalk, gasping for air, a couple appeared from around the corner walking their dog, a small terrier that started barking at me. "Help," I shouted, my voice hoarse. "Please, someone's chasing me." The man immediately waved down a passing taxi that was crawling by. I dove into the back seat, gasping and shaking, and yelled at the driver, "Just go, please, just drive." Through the rear window, I looked back once. The figures had stopped at the edge of the park. 3 dark silhouettes barely visible in the fog. They stood completely still, watching silently as the cab pulled away and turned the corner. Back at my hotel, I locked the door, fastened the chain, shoved a chair under the handle, and pulled the curtains tight. I sat shaking on the floor until sunrise, my phone clutched in my hand, too terrified to sleep. Every sound in the hallway made me jump. Every car door slamming outside made my heart race. I thought it was over. I thought I'd escaped and that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. The next few days felt wrong. At first, it was little things I tried to convince myself were coincidence or paranoia. A dark Savannah black Nissan Altima parked outside the hotel every night in the same spot. Movement in my peripheral vision when I left work, like someone ducking behind a car or into a doorway. The feeling of eyes on me whenever I stepped outside, that prickling awareness that made my skin crawl. Then came the messages. At first, they were simple, almost playful. Text messages from unknown numbers. "Hey stranger, miss you." I blocked the number. Another one appeared. That was rude. Then they got darker. "You should have stayed for the walk. I know where you are. Room 314, blue curtains. Do you always sleep with the TV on?" My blood ran cold. I was in room 314. I did have blue curtains. And yes, I'd been leaving the TV on at night because the silence was too oppressive. The phone call started that same night. My phone would ring at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. When I answered, there would be nothing but breathing on the other end. Slow, deliberate breathing. Once, someone whispered my name, my full name, first and last, before hanging up. I changed my hotel room. The messages continued. Room 228, now, still has blue curtains. I changed my phone number. Within hours, the text started again. New number, same you. Nothing worked. One night, after getting a call from an unknown number and hearing someone whisper, "I can see you," I finally went to the police. It was 6 p.m., I was having a panic attack, and I couldn't take it anymore. At the station, I told them everything about Dylan, the bar, the park, the van, the men in the fog, the messages, the calls, all of it. My voice shook as I spoke. I showed them screenshots of the messages, Dylan's Tinder profile, everything I had. When I finished, the two officers, a younger woman and an older man, exchanged a grim look. "You're not the first," the older officer said quietly, his expression grave. "We've had other reports. Women who matched with someone online went for a walk." And he trailed off. "And what?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. "Some were found," he said carefully. "Some weren't." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk. They promised to look into it, to see if they could track down Dylan's real identity, to increase patrols near my hotel. The female officer put her hand on my shoulder and said, "You were lucky. You trusted your instincts. That saved your life." Then the older officer leaned forward and said the words that still haunt me. "But if I were you, I'd leave town as soon as you can. These people, they don't stop. And we can't protect you 24/7. I packed my things that night, didn't wait for morning, didn't tell my company I was leaving, didn't tell anyone where I was going except Sarah, and I swore her to secrecy. I drove 6 hours straight to my parents' house in North Carolina. Checking my rearview mirror the entire way, convinced every pair of headlights behind me was them. I never used Tinder again. I never stayed out alone at night. I never went on walks in parks after dark. And I never forgot the way Dylan smiled as he led me into the mist, like a spider who'd just felt the vibration of prey in his web. It's been over 2 years now, and I still check over my shoulder. I still get phantom text notifications that make my heart stop. I still have nightmares about fog and footsteps and hands reaching out from the darkness. Sometimes the monsters aren't strangers lurking in alleyways. Sometimes they're charming. Sometimes they like the same music as you. Sometimes they make you laugh over drinks at a well-lit bar. Sometimes they're the ones you invite into your life. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you live to tell the story. Thanks for listening, Salem Night fans. Before you turn out the lights, do one thing for me. Hit that like, share, and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more stories just like this one.